8 p.m. and we are back from our recess and back in order. Our next item is item 12, Chief Counsel Matters. This is question responses regarding Bagley Keene pursuant to some board member questions that came up, and this will be presented by Mr. Moon.
Good afternoon, Richard Moon, Chief Counsel. As you may recall, this was an item that the board had requested the legal department provide a memo on at the September meeting. The memo is attached to the PAN and concludes that while Bagley Keene does not explicitly discuss anonymous public comment, that anonymous public comment should be allowed. And the basis of that conclusion stems from the fact that Bagley Keene's overarching purpose is to allow the public to attend and participate as fully as possible in a state body's decision-making. So in order to achieve that purpose, Bagley Keene has several specific statutes that cover attendance at a meeting and speaking at a meeting. And there are provisions of the Constitution that require us to interpret those statutes broadly when it expands rights and narrowly when it limits a person's right to participate. And so taking those principles in mind, looking at the specific statutes, we think that allowing public comment is in line, or best in line, with Bagley Keene. And I think it notes stating also that the Attorney General's office is also consistently interprets Bagley Keene to be quite broad. So, for example, they publish a Bagley Keene guidebook, and in that guidebook for many years, they had interpreted actually the statutory provision that talks about meetings, and they extended that to also include speaking at a meeting, and concluding that you can speak anonymously, or the public can speak anonymously at a meeting. In addition to that, we took a look at the legislative history of specifically Government Code 11-125.7, which is the statute that deals with speaking at a meeting. And it's very clear from the legislative intent that it was meant to be interpreted broadly. And with regard to 11-125.7, which again is the statute that deals with speaking, the Attorney General's office has also interpreted that very broadly. And actually they did with respect to our agency in particular. And they held that the public has a right to speak at our meeting, even at the adjudicatory portion of it. And that's why during items 2 through 5 today, we allowed the public comment if there were any. And I think the board as well as a whole has taken this sort of expansive view of Bagley Keene for at least the past 20 years. That's as far back as we could find, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went even before that. And most recently, the board added the item number 1, which is the public comment on matters not on the agenda. And I think, again, that's just it's consistent with the board's years-long practice of trying to be as transparent and open to the public as possible. So I will leave it there for the introduction. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to address those.
Okay, Mr. Schaefer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moon. I think that's a very excellent report. 7 pages of it. I've read every bit of it and commend you on it. I had a question on one item here. I see on page 3 it says that the opportunity is provided for the public to address the board on any agenda item, as well as items not on the agenda. So if somebody wanted to come in and complain about the price of LA Dodgers tickets, and are they, now that they're so valuable, are we going to put a tax on them? That's not on the agenda, but they can stand up and talk to us about it. But it goes further to say that, however, members cannot address comments made on matters not on the agenda. So if you should come before us as a citizen and talk about taxing LA Dodgers tickets. I couldn't comment at all. I mean, I know we can't decide on it, we can't discuss the merits of it, but I think I should be able to say that's outside our agenda, or I think that's a good fundraising deal, we'll bring it up next month. I don't think that you can muzzle the members totally on that when you allow the public unmuzzled.
Yeah, so I think it depends on what you mean by muzzled. So if you mean, certainly the quote-unquote muzzling or the limitation would be on hearing, discussing, or deliberating. And in particular, because the body is the body, you are the members that are making any particular decisions, and hearing information in order to make those decisions. And so the whole reason why we have the number one item separated out, the matters not on the agenda, is for, like you said, the public to come make comment, but then the members could, of course, address it with comments, for example, like, that's a good idea, and then the chair could decide whether to put it on the agenda or not for a future time. So in that sense, the members certainly aren't limited to
All
that
right, so
kind
we're
of.
not being muzzled, we're just using discretion.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. So thank you so much, Mr.
You're welcome.
Moon. Did you want to close on it?
No, that's all I had. Again, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to address it.
My silence doesn't mean I agree with him. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And see, we didn't muzzle you before you said that. So members, we're going to take our public comment now. We do not have any written comments and no speaker cards coming from the auditorium. So we'll go to our AT&T moderator. Moderator, could you let us know if there's anyone who's hoping to make a comment on item 12 on the agenda?
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to comment on item number 12, please press 1 followed by 0. 1 followed by 0. And Madam Chair, nobody is queuing up.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go on now to item 13, our executive director's report. Ms. Stowers.
Good afternoon, Yvette Stowers, Executive Director. The focus of this report will, the focus of the Executive Director's report will basically focus on the quarterly reports that my team will be presenting. So today I will be brief. I will discuss about the newly required tribal consultation training, and then I'll be providing an update on recent events. As today is National Native American Month, I would like to remind the members of the required training, the email that was sent to your office on November 14th. The Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs and the California Department of Human Resources recently developed the Tribal Consultation Training as required by Government Code Section 10019.81. This free online training is mandatory for those with authority to represent the state of California in tribal government-to-government consultation, which includes all board member staff, the executive director, and the executive management team. The 2.5 self-paced training is now available on CalLearns, and the training must be completed by December 31st, 2024. Newly appointed officers, as of on 1/1/25, will have 6 months from the date of appointment to complete their training.
A question, you said, Madam Executive Director, we deal with tribal matters. I don't recall dealing with tribal matters. Do you mean they could come before us?
They could come before you. You may be in your district and working with the tribal government or recognizing them for any event. So yes, as elected officials, you could deal with tribal matters.
Now, you're not dealing with oral presentations here. Is it online training or?
It's an online training. It's on on your, if you go into your BoE email and you click on CalLearns, CalLearns, click on there and register for the training. Your staff should also help you, because they can help you access the training material. And it's 2 hours. It's
As to
self-paced.
the ethics training, is that also now available online? Or-
The ethics training we do with the actual attorney is not available. Well, the training that you take is not available online. Your training is done through Shaw's, and it's not online. And I do not believe you're scheduled for that training in the immediate future. I believe you just,
Is it every term or every 4 years or?
every 2 years.
Okay, and I was told, how much do we pay the guy? I think it's about $2,500 a session to do a program.
I'm not sure about the cost. I don't have that data in front of me.
And I'm concerned that he told me that Bagley Keene requires that he do one-on-one with everybody, and for the life of me, I don't see that. You know, it's not an agenda item, it's a how do you behave yourself item, and I have shared it with Member Gates, and I just don't see why we can't have members share that. I'm told by you that the members all individually want their own, and I can appreciate that, but I am very troubled by the attorney presenting it, saying Mr. Schaefer, Bagley Keene requires we do 5 different forums.
Yeah.
I've been trying for at least a year now to get some documentation from him or you or Mr. Moon as to whether he's right or wrong. I think he's wrong, and I'd like to find out whether
Well,
he's right or wrong.
I'm not sure if he's correct or not, but because of that training, the members may be asking some sensitive questions regarding their ethics. And from my understanding, the members prefer to have that training with just them and their staff.
I think there should be the option to be by yourself, but if I had any ethics questions about my own conduct, I would be happy to address them here and now in front of God. I think most of the members here are very conscientious about efficiency in government, and I've seen it with one or more members joining with me on such an event. And I would like to have your speaker change his mind and tell us that it's not required by Bagley Keene. It's really more a matter of member discretion. That's what I think the answer is. If
I
you
would,
could help-
when we schedule the training again, I would look through the material and make sure that he's accurate, but I don't have that material in front of me, so I'm not sure what he's saying. And
But you know the
I'm
problem.
not, excuse me, I'm not even sure if we have allowed 2 members to join in on the training.
And it worked
We have not,
fine. It
okay.
worked fine. In fact, it worked a lot better because questions that Member Gaines had, I learned from him. And questions that I had, he maybe have learned from those. I think we learn from questions that our colleagues come up with. That's why I think it's a better session if there's 2 of us there. Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer, we have Ms. Himmel approaching.
Hi, Julia Himovitz on behalf of BoE Legal. So I believe the training that you're talking about is put on by a law group that does specific trainings for you as members. Bagley Keene would allow 2 members to have their trainings together if that were the will of the members. But I think for scheduling purposes, either that hasn't happened or members have chosen to do their trainings individually as schedules have allowed. To avoid Bagley Keene issues, we do generally recommend, well, it's not generally recommend, the law requires no more than 2, otherwise you have a meeting occurring, and so it would have to be publicly noticed.
You're aware that Member Gaines and I shared an ethics meeting and the world survived.
Yes, I see that the world has survived after that training took place. But I think just to make sure that I have clearly answered that question, we do have a training that takes place that we do offer to the members. Bagley Keene requires no more than 2 members attend something like that so that we don't have any Bagley Keene violations.
Oh, okay, so you're rejecting his, my understanding of his earlier statement that you have to have one for each individual member. It's now that you can have 2 members participate if they want to.
So I'm not sure who you're referencing that said what you're saying, and so I can't speak to whether they were correct or not because I wasn't there, and I don't know if that is the exact statement that was made. But what I'm telling you is that Bagley-Keene requires no more than 2 members.
And can you estimate the cost to the state of his services?
I cannot, I am not privy to that information.
But you will admit that it is transparent, though, that
That what is transparent?
his salary or his fee.
Sure, yeah, people can request through the Public Records Act. We comply with all of the disclosure requirements and things like
I
that.
would ask that your office obtain that information and share it with the board.
I'm going to turn the microphone over to Ms. Stowers now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Julia. There is a fee. I don't have the figure in front of me. Legal is not privy to it. And I will send the members an email showing the cost because we are charged, and I do charge your office budget for it.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, so as I was saying, there is new training, mandatory training, tribal consultation, and each member and your staff should complete this training by December 31st. I sent the email on November 14th, November 12th, and I will resend it again today, just in case. And for those who have already started the training, thank you very much. Okay, now, the next item I would like to talk about.
One question. I don't see the word tribal in number 14. Does the word tribal appear in writing anywhere in documents that I have?
No, because these are I'm sharing this information with you. What you see on the agenda is the executive director's report, and that's all you see. And I'm just providing updates on what I have to report on. And the tribal consultation training is something that I sent to you on November 12th, and I will resend again today to your BoE email addresses for you to read and to link on.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further?
Okay, righty. Past events. First, let me talk about past events that the BoE attended. On November 6th to the 8th, the California Lawyers Association held their annual meeting of the Tax Bar and Tax Policy Conference. BoE Chief Counsel, Mr. Richard Moon, participated, and in the Chief Counsel Roundtable, which included chief counsels from the Office of Tax Appeal, the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, and the Franchise Tax Board. Each chief counsel provided an update on notable events in their respective agendas and respective agencies, and spoke about legislation, regulation, and case of interest over the last year. Also this year, Ms. Lisa Thompson, BoE Taxpayer Rights Advocate, participated in a discussion on navigating support at the taxpayer departments with advocates from all other tax agencies. We appreciate the invitation to attend this conference, and we were well received. Next item is the BoE members, we participated in the 2024 State Tax Agency Liaison Meeting hosted by the California Society of Enrolled Agents. This meeting was virtual, and it was on November the 7th. BoE was represented by Mr. Moon, Mr. David Young, and Ms. Lisa Thompson, and they provided information on educational resources, disaster relief, active solar exclusion. This was our 3rd appearance at this event, and we find it very helpful, another way of educating some of our stakeholders. And one of our frequent topics is, guess what? Prop 19. So that concludes my report. We have no public events for December except for our board meeting. I am available to answer any questions.
Great. Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you for that report, Ms. Towers. I was wondering, you mentioned that Mr. Moon was, I guess he sat on a panel, I believe.
Yes.
At the tax. Is there anything that came out of it that we should be aware of, especially as I guess he was hearing from other tax folks?
I don't think so. I mean, it's their standard chief counsel roundtable where the chief counsels are just providing updates on their various agencies. Mr. Moon, was there anything? No, nothing that we need to know. Mr. Imran, I believe you were there?
Yes, I was there. Thanks for putting me on the spot, too.
He wasn't paying attention though.
Yeah, I was there. I thought the BoE, Richard Moon, Lisa Thompson, they both did a great job of representing all the big taxpayers. Big taxpayers were there. There was just a little bit of a discussion, though, about, for example, AB 2238 came up, and this idea of political participation in tax administration, and if it's a good or bad thing. And I think those are kind of ongoing discussions. But having board employees there representing us as an elected tax agency, I thought was really, really critical in that. Because not only you had state agencies, you had a lot of private players. Deloitte was there as well, and so on and so forth. So just continuing to be active in those spaces, I think is important to show the good work we're doing. And Richard did a great job of showing us some of the really, really good big cases that we're working on. Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, Lisa actually got some business out of it. She got several representatives coming to her with some assistance, so, and she was able to service them right there, as opposed to having to go back to the office and do it. So thank you, Lisa Thompson.
Great. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much. And we will invite up Ms. Renati for the operational priorities report and quarterly budget report.
Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable members. I am Lisa Renati, Chief Deputy Director. Today I'll provide a report on the agency's operational priorities and the first quarterly report for the fiscal year for the agency. So our first item is workforce capacity. And since the restructuring of our agency, we've faced a lot of challenges with our BoE-specific job classifications. And for the last few years, we've been actively engaged in multiple activities to address this issue. And this last month, we obtained conditional approval from CalHR to temporarily use certain classifications, including the tax auditor classification, and while we work towards a formal class consolidation of our own positions. So this is really good news. We're putting together the package to get approval so that we can start hiring some people straight out of college with that tax auditor classification that requires just education, and as opposed to our current classifications, which are education and experience. So we can continue to grow our own. So we actively collaborate with our service provider, and we're hopefully going to give you some good news in the near future. The next item is our State Assessed Properties IT modernization project. As you recall, this is to replace our board roll system. And Ms. Kathy Taylor and Mr. Jack McCool are both leads on this project, and they're working with our service provider on this it's going to be a long-term project. So wanted to give you an update on that. Right now, we are working on short-term solutions in what we can do now, meaning no money for free. What we can do now to kind of clean up our system, and then we're going to map out our system and hopefully look for a long-term solution, which is a new technology project. And then down the road, just to give you a glimpse, we want to integrate the rest of our departments into that solution. So hopefully, we're not sure if it will be ready in time, these solutions, for our new board roll season, but hope springs eternal. Then the last thing is our quarterly budget report. So as you're aware, our budget is 86% is for personal services, which is our staff payroll and our benefits, and the other 14% is our OE&E. And the 2024 Budget Act assumed savings related to permanent elimination of vacant positions and permanent reduction of our operating expenses. So in August of this year, the Department of Finance issued a budget letter to all agencies and departments, including BoE, and requesting the reduction in our positions and our funding. So it's still ongoing, but as of today, we have provided a cut of 47% of our vacant positions as of June 30th. That's about $1 million in personnel costs, and we also cut a bit of our operating expenses. It's critical to note that as a small agency, every single position lost is felt in our agency. But we also realize California's fiscal challenges and the role we play to help California rebuild. So that's our bad news. So our good news is that our first quarter 2020 of this fiscal year 24-25 rather, We are on target. We have spent 25% of our budget, so in 3 months, spending 25% makes sense. And so we're on target to be within our budget by the end of the year. We are also preparing new expenditure reports. We've been sending them to your offices every month or so you can see how much you are budgeted and how much you've spent. And we've looked at those reports and see that they are kind of old-fashioned. They've been looked the same for decades, so we're working on a revamp of those so we can use, your actual amount of your budgeted positions, your actual amounts that you're spending, and the actual categories within your spending. Because sometimes right now they get lumped together. So we'd rather have you have that actual detailed information so you know where you're spending money. It also helps us catch when there's a mistake. We find something posted that makes no sense. Why is that number so large? Or why are you purchasing something in a member's office or in a specific unit? So we're working on those. We're hopefully going to get those to you in the near future. Just working out the kinks, want to make sure we have a format that we can readily give to you, and month after month, it's easy to produce. That also, by doing this, it'll allow our management to look at the units and make better spending decisions should our budget get very tight. So as I said, these updated reports will be coming to you soon. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Great. Mr. Schaefer and then Mr. Emron.
Thank you. Ms. Renati, I have a nice suite of offices right across the street from the Capitol that is not being used because I would prefer to have an office here at the May Lee Complex, a shared office. I do have a busy office in San Diego where I can be found and meeting with people, but I have really no need for this office here, and it's actually 4 very nice offices with a view. I'd like you to make use of it or get rid of it. Mr. Angelo, who deals with the Capitol all the time, and I don't, he should be there if he wants to be. We have a kitchen. We have a conference room. I'm very proud of the office. It's just my other office and I are 500 miles away, and it's costing us about $5,000 a month, and I represent the taxpayers, and I don't like that a bit. And if you could find a tenant, rent it to a lobbyist, rent it to Coca-Cola Company. I don't care. I just want to get it off the, I want to get it out of our financial obligations. You understand?
I do, and once the lease is at a point where we can, we no longer have a lease, I'd be happy to meet with you in your office to decide where you'd rather have.
Michelle is there now, but Michelle can work out of here. Michelle can work someplace else. I feel guilty having a suite of offices for $5,000 and I just using one staff member, and she comes to see me out here. I don't go there. And I'm doing my job, but I'm not doing my job on behalf of the taxpayers if I keep this office that I'm asking you relieve me of.
I appreciate your concern.
Okay. Well, we can find a pathway to that, definitely. So we'll work on that one and get it off your docket. Okay. Mr. Emron is next.
Thank you. Real quick question, just about job postings and classifications. For example, like Ms. Glenna Schultz, she retired. Is there a pipeline to fill her job and then somebody gets a job behind her as we're dealing with maybe a wave of retirements in 2025?
It's a very good question. We have 2 considerations on backfilling positions. One is whether they had a vacation balance when they left. That's why we were very cognizant of people's vacation balances and making sure they reduce them down to the limits. Because if you retire or you leave state service with a high balance, then we have to pay that person out and we need to come up with funds. So generally you have to leave positions vacant for a while. So that's one consideration. Another consideration is whether we have the funding to fill that position. Because as you're all aware, we only budgeted at the midline for every position. We're not budgeted at the full cost of that position. So we need to sometimes keep positions vacant. They call it salary savings. So it's a consideration, and that's why we're working towards these more accurate expenditure reports so we can make decisions of which positions can be filled, which positions can't. And that's a decision that Ms. Stowers makes.
Absolutely. And my next question, do we have a list of entry-level jobs if you're coming out of college or just want to get your feet wet with the BOE? Is there certain positions, or are we more going after experienced folks?
Great question. As a small agency with a tax program, we primarily have tax positions in our property tax unit that are where we have most of our entry-level positions. It's not to say we don't have office technicians that answer the phones or staff services analysts and senior analysts that work in.
Please excuse me, we can't hear you.
It's not to say we don't have positions in other departments that are used as entry level, but the majority of our positions do require education and experience. So by using these new classifications, our goal is to get a classification that can hire just with education. It's easier to find people just getting out of college than finding people that just got out of college, that have a college degree and experience.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, other questions for Ms. Renati, Mr. Vasquez, and then Mr. Gaines?
Thank you, Mr. Renati, for your report, specifically on the various projects that are keeping your staff, or our staff actually busy on good stuff. I was kind of curious on the outcome on some of this reclassification that you kind of touched on with Cal HR and the Department of Finance and their feedback on our budget.
Well, we're not working with finance on these reclassifications.
Oh, you're not?
This is with Cal HR.
Or just Cal?
And so Cal HR we have to work with Cal HR to get approval, and then once we obtain their approval, we go to the State Personnel Board and have their board hear our changes. And our goal is to change our BOE-specific classifications to allow education or experience for one side and just education only on the other side. So that way we can hire the next generation of property tax experts.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gaines?
Thank you. Appreciate the comments from Member Schaefer on closing the office down, that if you're not using it, then why not, right? And I know the needs for each member are different. I did have a Southern California office during the pandemic. It was shut down, right? And so in that particular circumstance, I had a constituent services staffer that lives in Southern Cal. So we were able to shut that office and still provide services for our constituents. But I also understand that differs depending on what your needs are per your district. A question in terms of the tax auditor education only requirement. Number one, I want to congratulate you for that, because it's something that's been an issue for a couple of years. And when I toured the BOE office, I wish I could remember the name of the lady that told me that she thought that was the biggest issue with staff in the BOE, was that tax auditor position, and that there were, I think at the time she told me there were 7 vacancies. This is maybe a year or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very encouraged that you've made progress on that, and it's going to be, we're still going to have the education requirement, so they'll have the right education, and then I'm sure we can train them, right, with on-the-job experience and
We
things of
had
that
very
sort.
good success using the tax auditor classification for about 40 years.
Mhm.
And this is just a remnant of the restructuring of our agency. About 75% of our state assessed properties division started as tax auditors.
Okay.
And so we are, trying to go back to that model. But it's going to be temporary while we work on our classifications, obviously. But it's been a few years, yeah, about 4 years we've been working on this.
Yeah.
So
Well done. That's great. And you had mentioned that we've had cuts of equal to $1 million.
mhm.
So we're doing our part at the BOE in terms of the deficit situation that the state is in.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, it's good to see that we're able to do that and still operate efficiently. I'm impressed in that degree. I know the vacancy rate has been dropping and that you've been working very hard and making sure we fill those positions. So I'm glad we're kind of ahead of the curve in that respect and filling those spots. So
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's exciting to see filling the spots. It's hard to lose any spots, but it's, we'll work towards getting to where we need to be. And
Yeah.
then,
And that will continue, right? We're going
Oh.
to still have people that are retiring that
so they say.
we'll have to
So they
replace.
say.
Yeah, it's a juggling act too, because I
Yeah.
know you've got to work all that out with sick and vacation time, so.
It is difficult, but we're a great agency and we keep going.
Yeah,
So,
excellent. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, we'll see no other questions. Thank you so much for your report. And we'll go on to item 15, the Chief Counsel Quarterly Report presented by Mr. Moon.
Good afternoon. I'm Richard Moon, Chief Counsel with the Legal Department. I'm here to present a brief report on the department's work and workload for quarter 3 of 2024. First and foremost, I want to thank the entire legal staff for their continued hard work and dedication, especially in the midst of some changes. It was really difficult for people to adjust their work and some of the things that they were doing. And also during the third quarter, most of the attorneys have been heavily involved in state-assessed appeals, either representing the state-assessed properties division or on the appeals attorney side. And in spite of the emphasis on appeals, the numbers for this quarter are very similar to the numbers from quarter 2. And again, that's a testament to the hard work and dedication of the attorneys on our staff and all of our staff. The bulk of appeals we're expecting will wrap up after next month's hearing, and then we'll be able to turn our attention back to all of our other work, of which there is a lot. So I'm happy to answer any questions, general or specific.
Okay, questions? Mr. Emron, and then Mr. Vasquez and Mr. Gaines.
Thank you, Mr. Moon. It says the legal department is currently actively recruiting to fill 3 positions. Are they all attorney positions? And
Yes.
does it start with attorney 1, 2, and do they have a chance to rise within it, or what? Like kind of similar to Lisa's question, are you looking for more experienced attorneys to take on your wing and just get them going rather than more on work training?
Yes, so these 3 positions are all attorney positions. And some of these, 2 of them at least, are open because the present attorneys have moved up. So when I became chief counsel, my old position opened up, and we were able to promote one of our existing attorneys into that position, which opened up her position. Now we're recruiting for that position. We are also recruiting for a attorney 3 position, which is the mid-level position, which was the one vacated by Ms. Himovitz. And then we are recruiting for an attorney 1 position. You may recall when Mr. Scott was giving this presentation last quarter, he had said that we had a new attorney. That new attorney has decided to go to a different agency, and so we're recruiting for that position again now. So those are the 3 positions.
Got it, got it. Good luck. And Mr.
Thank
Moon,
you.
you've been here as chief counsel for about 6 months now?
It feels like 6 years, but I think it's been 3 months.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you. You've been doing a great job. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Mr. Moon, and I know you have quite a bit on your plate as I'm looking through, especially your report here. And I was just wondering, in your quarterly report here, it says that you completed 24 litigation cases in the third quarter of 24. This seems really significant an accomplishment. I'm just wondering, does this also include all the ones that were settled and dropped or taken through the trial process?
Yeah, no, so the litigation cases represent those cases that we have outside of the administrative hearings. So those are ones that were filed in Superior Court. And the reason why that number is particularly high, and the reason why it's high is there are a series of cases for which we're required to be named as a defendant by statute, but the substantive issue is not really ours. It's a county issue. And so what a number of taxpayers have done is they've filed with our name on it against us, but it's really not our case. And it has the added complication. This particular issue was decided in one of the courts of appeals in California. And so it appears that what some taxpayers are trying to do is to try and get a different district court to take that case. Hopefully, they're hoping they would win, and then they would want the Supreme Court to take it to decide the issue once and for all. So what they've been doing is they've been filing a number of cases across the state. And then, as I understand it, they've been asking for a quick judgment so that they can just go to appeals. And so that's how they're quote unquote finished for us.
So it's not like, and sometimes you hear about these cases where, school districts are always being sued because they're like the deep pocket, or a city, for example, because whoever the opposition is, they're trying to find where the possible money source might be.
That is not our situation.
I didn't think so. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Gaines.
Yeah, thank you. Are we okay in terms of the replacement of attorneys, given the budget?
So we are affected, as Ms. Ranati had shared, I think every department has been a little bit affected.
Right.
We could always use more attorneys. I think ever since AB 102, we've had a shortage. So it's nothing new. I guess maybe that's good news. We're used to it. We need more. I don't think right now we have the budget for more.
Right.
But as soon as we do,
But we can replace what we've lost.
as of now, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right, very good, thank you.
Okay, great. Seeing no other questions, thank you so much, Mr.
Thank
Moon.
you.
And we'll go on to item 16, the Communication Chief's Quarterly Report, presented by Mr. Kim.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable members. I'm Peter Kim, BoE's Chief Communications Officer. Today, I'll provide a brief overview of some major highlights and accomplishments for the third quarter of 2024. First, I will provide a brief recap of the communications efforts for the 2024 Taxpayers' Bill of Rights hearing. In collaboration with the Chief of the TRA office, we implemented a broad communication strategy to inform the public, taxpayers, and stakeholders regarding this year's hearing. Similar to prior years, we provided the board with an outreach toolkit consisting of the flyer, the public service announcement, social media graphics, suggested talking points, an e-blast message, an image for use as a web button for external partners' websites, and web links for additional information regarding the hearing. We also utilized electronic communications by sending multiple e-blasts to those on the Taxpayer Bill of Rights hearing listserv and to all known email addresses associated with entities filing the alcoholic beverage tax returns. Also, the BoE website featured a dedicated banner regarding the hearing leading up to the hearing date. Finally, in partnership with the TRA office, outreach materials were provided to various stakeholders, including the BoE Advisory Council members, statewide taxpayer organizations and associations, and all state legislative offices. Next, members, I'll provide some updates on the BoE website. The Proposition 19 webpage had approximately 40,487 unique external page views in the last quarter. Since its launch on November 10th, 2020, there have been approximately 656,461 total page views. The Translate webpage had an approximately 1,091 unique external page views in the last quarter. Since its launch on June 10th of 2022, there have been approximately 23,679 total page views. Finally, I wanted to brief the board that the About BoE webpage on the BoE website was also updated this past quarter to better describe the BoE's current constitutional and statutory duties in greater detail. And we've also included the latest board photo on that page as well. The last item on my report today is communications regarding property tax disaster relief. As the board knows, wildfires and winter storms have become quite common in California. The BoE continues to regularly remind taxpayers about property tax disaster relief, which is prominently featured on the BoE's homepage and alert banner and our social media accounts. Last quarter, the TRA office published a new information guide for disaster relief for damaged or destroyed property. It's Pub 802. To amplify the BOE's disaster relief resources and this information guide, we issued a news release. And this year, the BOE received quite a bit of positive news coverage throughout the state on television, radio, and print media related to the property tax disaster relief. And we are committed to sharing this information on a regular basis so affected taxpayers know how and what they need to do. So this concludes my report, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Schaefer.
Thank you. Mr. Kim, I noticed you listed a whole bunch of media here. I don't see anybody from the three main markets, which are Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego. Don't they have an interest in what we're doing? I thought there'd be news there that something's going on in the backcountry, and the BOE is riding in to the rescue.
Thank you for that question, Board Member Schaefer. Yes, I always strive to include all of our major media markets. I do believe that part of the reason why this disaster relief were covered in the media markets I mentioned were that the news release was actually issued in August of 2024, and that's where many of these the wildfires occurred in these media markets where the coverage was reported in. So hopefully we could feature this again shortly, and if possible, the other media markets could cover it too. Yes.
I see that we translate our webpage into 7 different languages, 2 of which are Chinese. I imagine our largest one is Spanish. How large? 90%, 50%? Just how big is Spanish and all the rest put together? I guess I'm sort of hinting that maybe we're overdoing it as far as ethnic languages.
Yes, I don't know the percentages off the top of my head, but I know that these are the 7 most commonly requested languages other than English that we've received in the past. And it was actually due to the board's leadership that we included the translate button on our website so that those who are limited English speaking have the opportunity to get the information in their spoken language.
Well, that's a very commendable goal, but of the 7 languages, if we are only getting inquiries on 2 or 3 of them, then maybe if we're not getting inquiries on any language, if it costs us something, speaking as a taxpayer's advocate, I would only like to use the 3 or 4 of the 7 that are most in demand.
Fortunately, there is no cost to us. So actually providing the languages, all 7 languages, you should be happy to know it cost us nothing. So
Well, you're doing a very good job.
thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Imran.
Thank you. Ditto. You are doing a very good job, and I just want to quickly commend you on the property tax disaster relief. I got to follow it. I thought it was a very, very good piece, and it really, really sheds the BOE in a positive light, especially being there during a taxpayer's hardest of times. And I think that's what this agency is all about. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you to the controller. I know that she also did some outreach on the property tax disaster relief too, so we appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Kim. As I'm looking at your report, it looks like you done well, you pretty much highlighted some of the things, especially with the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. And you're obviously doing a pretty good job because you're getting some real good hits on the website. You mentioned on Prop 19, the webpage, you pointed out there were over 40,000 additional views since the last quarter. Do we know if that trend of the number of views, is it increasing or decreasing as visitors coming on that?
Yes, thank you for the question, Board Member Vasquez. We've had a discussion in our pre-briefings on this with another member, and we've observed that it's pretty consistent throughout the time. It's between 40 to 60,000 external page views per quarter since the launch. So we feel like it's pretty consistent. It hasn't dropped off or seen any type of major change. So it appears that the information is appreciated and people are accessing it. So, yeah,
Great job, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gaines.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate the job you're doing, and I had focused on that same issue on Prop 19. It's not going away.
That's
People
correct.
continue to inquire at about, that's quarterly, so that's like 13,000 page views a month roughly. So I just find that really interesting, and I'm glad that we continue to update that too, it sounds like.
Yeah, everything that our property tax department and legal department issues, we update the webpage in real time so that taxpayers know. And you know, I get inquiries from the press on Prop 19 frequently too, and so I always direct them to that webpage, and they're very happy to see that it's all centrally located.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, good job, thank you.
thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Mr. Kim. We appreciate the report. And we'll go on to item 17, Taxpayers' Rights Advocates Office Report by Ms. Thompson. I know you have a good report for us today.
I do. Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable board members. I'm Lisa Thompson, the Chief of the Taxpayer Rights Advocate Office, and I'm pleased to provide you with some statistics on the number of completed cases by the TRA office last month. We completed 45 in total. 12 are from Vice Chair Gaines's district, District 1, 18 from Chair Lieber's district, District 2, and 7 from Board Member Vasquez's district, District 3, and 8 were from Board Member Schaefer's district, District 4. 10 were from the administrative category and 35 from the valuation category. The memo that is attached to the public agenda notices does identify the number by topics for each of those categories. However, the amount of cases by topic in the administrative category were fairly evenly distributed amongst 4 different topics, each with 2 cases. Delinquent and defaulted taxes, tax bill penalties, and refunds were among those. And for the valuation category, the topic with the highest number of cases was exclusions from reassessment. And they had 12 completed cases. Of those 12, 5 were for transfers between parents and children, 4 for base year value transfers for seniors, and 3 pertain to base year value transfers for disaster victims. So this concludes my update, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Thompson? Mr. Schaefer.
I see that Member Vasquez and myself only have 7 or 8, where you have 18 matters in our chair's district. Is life more complicated up there than it is in LA, San Diego, or what do you account that for?
I think maybe Lieber could address that, but I would say, yes, it's a complicated district.
Oh.
I live in it, so
And you
yes.
had 8 matters involved in my district. If you're concluding them with the taxpayer being happy, I'd like the letter to be signed by myself. If it's unhappy news, you can sign it.
Okay, I'll send them your way.
Okay, other questions? Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you for this report, Ms. Thompson. As we approach, I guess, the end of '24, I'm wondering if you have any plans on any new updates or information sheets. I know you've been really good on updating some of those, and I was wondering if anything's coming down, especially with the TRA materials in '25.
Mhm. So, yes, we actually have a publication, an information sheets that is in our forms and publications section now. It will address things to do upon the death of a real property owner. So it's very useful, particularly since the requirement for Proposition 19 claims for the parent-child require somebody to move in within a year of that death, as well as the homeowner's exemption requirements. So, so we have that will cover requirements to file a change in ownership statement with the assessor within a certain number of days following a death of a real property owner, as well as, again, if they qualify for a parent-child, that they should do that. It also talks about informing the assessor's office about mailing address changes, because it's important to keep it up, to make sure the tax bill's received, pay taxes, just things like that. That's already in the pipeline. Should be done here probably in the next month. So the other thing that we have agreed with assessors in the past to finish, we had one to-do item, I will call it, and that is an information sheet that addresses nonprofit organization exemptions. So that will cover the welfare exemption, religious exemption, church exemption. We haven't started drafting that. We will do that. At the last assessors conference, I also committed to assessors based on a suggestion to do an information sheet addressing supplemental assessments. So I think I might maybe have agreed to one other one. So, and that was just kind of what is, we don't know kind of the title, but it's basically will cover what a person's assessed value is based on. So thank you for that.
Excellent. Any other questions for Ms. Thompson?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we will, let's see, we're just about at our break time. I think we need to do a 10-minute break now at this point. So the time is 3:04, and we will come back at 3:14. It's 3:14, and we are now back from our break. We'll go on to item 18, Property Tax Deputy Director's Report, presented by Mr. Young.
Thank you and good afternoon, Chair Lieber, honorable members of the board. For the record, my name is David Young, Deputy Director of the Property Tax Department. So for today, I have 4 reports for you. I have my team here also. So the first two will be letters to assessors, and then followed by training and certification. That will be given by Ms. Lauren Keach. The next one will be the quarterly report for our assessment practices survey. Ms. Holly Cooper will go ahead and give you that report. And following that will be Mr. Jack McCool. He will give you an update as to what's going on in the State Assessed Properties Division. So if you're ready, I will have Ms. Keach start with the first 2.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Ms. Keach.
All right, good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable board members. I'm Lauren Keys, Chief of the County Assessed Properties Division. Today, I will provide you with a brief report on letters to assessors. Attached to this month's agenda is a memo on letters to assessors, which provides a list of the LTAs that have been issued since the September board meeting. In addition, the memo provides a link to the BoE's website, where a list of all LTAs can be found that have been issued to date. As of the date of the attached memo, BoE staff has issued a total of 39 LTAs for 2024. Since the September board meeting, 8 of those LTAs have been issued, and those LTAs are summarized in order as follows. An LTA to announce the San Bernardino County Assessment Practices Survey results. An LTA to announce amendments to Property Tax Rule 192, audit selection. An LTA for lien date open space land interest component. An LTA announcing the 2025 income levels for leased property used exclusively for low-income rental housing. An LTA announcing the 2025-26 income levels for the tribal housing exemption. An LTA for lien date historical property interest component. An LTA and the proportional ownership transfer exclusion for transfer to and from legal entities. And an LTA issuing the 2025 calendar for the valuation of public utilities and railroads. This concludes my report on letters to assessors. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Ms. Keach on LTAs? Okay, seeing none.
Just one.
One question? Okay. Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you for that report. I just had a question on, I guess it was the LTA number 2024/038, and it was with Prang and the Los Angeles County AAB case, which was a subject in the LTA 38, I believe it was. It appears the court held that up in the section 62A2, requires both voting and non-voting stock to be considered when determining whether a transfer from a legal entity is proportional. And I guess my question was this situation where the taxpayer did it wrong, even though we had current legal opinions or information in the assessor's handbook, I guess it's AH 401, explaining how to do it right?
So my understanding and interpretation after reading the court case and as summarized in this LTA was that there was a misunderstanding or a misrepresentation of Section 64C, where corporations' control and ownership is represented only by voting stock. So this kind of clarified for a 62A2 transfer involving real property is represented by non-voting stock and voting stock. So in this case, it was transferred to a trust that only held the corporation's voting stock. However, prior to that, they had shareholders that held non-voting stock. So after this transfer, it was considered to be non-proportional.
And I think we have Mr. Moon approaching.
And I see Mr. Moon coming up. And actually, I have a question. Well, go ahead. Let me see.
Yeah,
'Cause I had a
Richard
question
Moon,
for you.
Chief Counsel. Ms. Keach did a great job describing some of the facts in the case. The little context that I wanted to add was that this was a case at the appellate court where the case had asked us, the court had asked us to file an amicus brief. We filed the amicus brief on the side of the taxpayer in this case, and that was based on guidance. albeit indirect, that we had that agreed with the taxpayer's position in this case. So in our amicus brief, we described why that was the case and why that had been our position. And the Supreme Court disagreed with us and ruled against our position and on the side of LA County.
Well, it's interesting. I was going to ask you if you submitted an amicus brief on behalf of the assessor, but you actually did it on behalf of the
No, we did
taxpayer.
it on behalf of the plaintiff, which was also, I guess you could say, for the AAB initially sided with the plaintiff. The Superior Court sided with the assessor, and then the district court, the appellate court, and the Supreme Court also sided with the assessor.
Thank you.
Mr. Gaines.
Yeah, just a question, because that changes the proportionality, right? If you were making the assumption that only voting shares could be used for ownership determination.
Yes.
So is that precedent setting in terms of future cases?
It is. So those were the exact facts in this case, where there was a transfer of property to both voting stockholders and non-voting stockholders.
Right, okay.
And the court held that that was not proportional.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. And we'll go on to the appraisal, training, and certification, also presented by Ms. Keach.
All right, thank you. I will now provide a brief report on the BOE's appraisal training and certification program. For the 2024-25 fiscal year, BOE staff has scheduled 31 classes and 2 workshops. In addition, 8 classes have been scheduled using instructors from county assessors' offices. Since the beginning of the fiscal year, the BOE has taught 13 classes. We continue to offer our existing online basic training courses available through American River and California State University, Sacramento, as well as online courses and self-study training sessions that are available on the BOE's website. This concludes my report on training and certification. I'm available to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Vasquez?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Keach. I know you mentioned that you were seeking more volunteers from the county assessor's office, and I was wondering how many of them have been able to step up and teach some of those classes.
We're still in the works of that. We did send out a CAO county assessors only letter to recruit more county instructors. So we're still taking those in. We don't have a definite number at this time, but we have recently certified more instructors, I believe, in Yolo County and LA County. So we definitely are trying to ramp up our county instructors so we can offer more courses that are needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll go on to the Assessment Practices Surveys Quarterly Report presented by Holly Cooper.
Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable members of the board. My name is Holly Cooper, Chief of the Assessment Practices Survey Division. Today I will be presenting a summary of the Assessment Practices Survey reports issued the third quarter of 2024. However, before I get started, I would like to provide a brief background on the programs administered by the division. In terms of current auditing practices, what we refer to as an assessment practice survey is actually a compliance audit, and the BOE's survey team's primary objective is to determine whether assessments are being made in accordance with property tax law. The division's major functions are to perform a qualitative audit by reviewing the assessor's policy and procedures, and to perform a quantitative audit by sampling representative assessments from the property tax assessment rolls. During the third quarter of 2024, we have issued 2 reports via letters to assessors in the following counties: Solano in District 1 and San Bernardino County, which is in District 1 and 4. The BOE conducted an assessment sampling survey in Solano County. It was a sample only. The published report reflects the BOE's review of the county's 2021-22 assessment roll, which contained approximately 149,000 assessments with an enrolled taxable value of approximately $62.5 billion. Solano had an average assessment ratio of 99.95%, and the sum of absolute differences was 0.36%. Both of the ratios are well within tolerance. Moving on to San Bernardino County Assessment Practices Survey. San Bernardino is considered a large county, therefore we did a survey and sampling. The BoE examined the assessment practices and procedures of the county's 2022-23 assessment roll. The areas reviewed included administration, real property, and personal property and fixtures. In the area of administration, the specific topic areas reviewed affecting both real and business property include budget and staffing and workload, assessment appeals, and the welfare exemption. The specific topic areas reviewed under real property included change in ownership, new construction, decline in value, and mineral property assessment. In the areas of both administration and real property assessment, the assessor has effective programs, and there were no recommendations for improvements. In the area of personal property and fixtures, the specific topic areas reviewed include audits, business property statements, and business equipment valuation. The assessor has an effective program for processing business property statements. However, we made recommendations for improvements in the audit and business equipment valuation programs. The audit recommendation, as stated in the report, is to perform the minimum number of audits of professions, trades, and businesses pursuant to Section 469. This is a common recommendation made when the assessor has not conducted the number of audits required during the period under review. The recommendation, as stated in the report for business equipment valuation, is to assess all taxable supplies. When the taxpayer fails to report supplies on their business property statements, the assessor does not enroll or assess any amount for supplies, when instead they should estimate a reasonable valuation for those supplies. The assessor, in their response to the survey recommendations, agreed with the BoE and has already or plans in the near future to implement the recommendations. In addition to the recs, the published report reflects the BoE sample findings. San Bernardino had an average assessment ratio of 100.19%, and the sum of absolute differences was 0.45%, which is well within tolerance. In summary, the BoE found no significant assessment problems as defined in Rule 371 in the reports issued during the third quarter of 2024. Therefore, Solano and San Bernardino County assessors are both eligible to receive reimbursement of cost with administrating their supplemental assessments. This concludes my quarterly report on assessment practices surveys, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Cooper? Mr. Gaines.
Yeah, thank you very much for your report. I'm just curious about San Bernardino and the valuation. I think I heard you indicate a valuation number that was over 100%.
That's correct. The sampling, the average assessment ratio was 100.19%.
So a little bit overvalued? What does that mean? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
It's basically, yes, the average resulted in a number slightly above 100%.
Interesting. I've never seen that before.
It's occasional, yeah.
Okay, all right. So then you would give recommendations as to, I mean, if it's overvalued, don't they have to go back through and take another look at those properties?
Yeah, we present the sample findings to the assessor, so any over or under assessments, they're provided that information for consideration. So we meet, we conference the findings with the assessor, and then it's at their discretion to make those changes.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Vasquez?
You answered part of my question, but the other one was just more of a comment, I guess. Just thanking you for the work and the service, because I know the functions that you were just describing in your report, I think it's so critical as we look to try to keep uniformity throughout the state. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for the report.
Thank you.
And we'll go on to the state assessed property presented by Mr. Jack McCool.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and honorable members of the board. My name is Jack McCool. I am the chief of the State Assessed Properties Division. Today, I'll provide information on the status of ongoing work in our division. Staff continue to focus on our remaining assessment appeal workload. Staff participated in the final round of appeals conferences last week, and we continue to work with petitioners in an attempt to find agreement on remaining issues. All remaining petitions will come before the board at the December board meeting. Staff continue to make good progress on our 2024 property tax audits. Most audits have been completed and continue to go through the review process. As of today, I believe we will have a few 2024 audits on the board's December agenda, and the remaining audits should come before the board in the early months of 2025. Finally, we have completed our annual State Assessed Properties Division newsletter. This newsletter is something our division completes annually and is mailed to every assessee. The newsletter provides assessees with information on how to correctly file their annual property statement, provides key dates for 2025, and also provides a listing of key personnel by topic so that assessees know who they can contact in our office if they have specific questions. The 2025 version of the newsletter is now live on our website, and staff should have this in the mail this week. That concludes my monthly update for the State Assessed Properties Division, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Young, did you have a? Oh, no, wait, I'm jumping the gun, having you come back. Or actually, yeah, Mr. Young, did you have a closer on that item?
Thank you very much. I yield. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No further questions for Mr. Young? Okay, seeing none. I just wanted to note that we'll let the record reflect that Member Schaefer had to leave at 3:28 p.m. And so we'll go on now to item 19, which is the special taxes quarterly report by Ms. Williams.
Good afternoon, Chair Lieber and members of the board. I'm Laurel Williams, the technical advisor for the special tax programs, which include the alcoholic beverage tax and the tax and insurance program. Today, I will give you my quarterly report for updates on both of the programs, and I will start with the tax and insurance program. This program has slightly fewer accounts since my last report at 2,736. According to the October 2024 Department of Finance Bulletin, the revenues for this fiscal year 24-25 for the program are at approximately $997 million. This is approximately $19 million or less than 2% above the forecasted amount. The program remains very compliant. Otherwise, our next program is our alcoholic beverage tax program. Currently, there are 10,709 accounts, which is slightly fewer also than my last report in July. According to the October 2024 Department of Finance Bulletin, the revenues for this program are at approximately $108 million, which is basically $1 million under projection. Alcohol sales are expected to increase during the holiday season, so this should likely be made up by my next quarterly report. The opt-in, opt-out rate for the wine grower program has remained relatively consistent since my last report. It is currently at about 65% of taxpayers are opting out. With the beer manufacturer returns, which are also now publicly available, starting in January of 2024 this year, the opt-out rate has been consistent at just over 50% for that program. All of the alcohol programs have been very compliant as well. One of the trends within the industry that I wanted to share with you for this quarterly report is the growing commitment in the alcohol industry to sustainability. Many breweries and distilleries are moving towards carbon neutral goals. New Belgium Brewery has been the first carbon neutral brewery, and Heineken has a goal of having 0 emissions by 2030. UC Davis has been working with many of the breweries and the companies to offer sustainable practices. One of the ones that I thought was very interesting is Carlsberg, which is a brand based out of the UK, has been funding with the guidance of the WWF. They've been funding the restoration of seagrass meadows around UK's coast, and seagrass absorbs carbon up to 30 times faster than the rainforest. They're also, another project UC Davis has been working on with the sustainable practices are in things such as installing solar, composting and repurposing the spent grain and other materials, as well as the reclaiming of water that has been used in the brewing process. Wine growers are doing their part too, with many of them moving away from natural cork and going to either synthetic cork or screw tops. And also they're using lighter weight bottles and glass alternatives. So there's a lot in the industry that is trying to move towards sustainability. But that's my report for this quarter, unless you guys have any questions. Oh, no.
Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Ms. Williams, for your report. I know you mentioned that the wine growers data is similar to the prior quarter data. From the start of the data exchange program, do you see any upward or downward trends developing as the new data, or is it plateaued?
Yeah, so the wine growers, there's some that file quarterly, some monthly, most are annually. So until we have another set of annual returns, it will be hard to really show, but it seems to vary in between 60 and 67% based on, you know, who's been reporting. For instance, right now it's the monthly, and every time that they file, they have to designate whether they want to be opted out. So it is very consistent in that it's not you selected it a long time ago, and you know, it's just so it is a conscious effort made by the taxpayer every time that they do that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, if you'd like to close for us.
Yeah, well, that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, and we'll go on. Our next item is item 20, the Legislative Research and Statistics Division Chief's Report by Mr. Angelo.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. Ted Angelo, Legislative Director and Chief of the Legislative Research and Statistics Division. Sorry, long day. I'll keep it brief, as I try to do. I just wanted to note a few things from a calendar perspective. December 2nd is the organizational session for new legislators that were from the November 5 election. For organization of the next session, which starts on January 6th. The governor called a special session to coincide with that December 2nd organizational session. There is on the governor's webpage details about, I'm not going to go into great detail about it today, but about protecting California-specific programs and initiatives that it wants to ensure stay protected under California law from federal government change that's going to take place in next year. I'm not going to go into why and whatnot, because I would just be kind of reading his press release. So you could take a look at that, but I just wanted everyone to be aware of that. Other than that, there'll be LTAs coming out on the proposals that I've briefed you on throughout the year. I'll just cover them very briefly. Our low-value ordinance exemption extension bill, SB 1527, and the accompanying measure that we worked on with CDTFA, SB 1528, both signed by the governor. And then last month, we had an advisory council meeting with interested parties that we have every year, and we kind of covered for them 4 key bills that I've mentioned with you here. The Habitat for Humanity 1868 Freedmen, which is the silent second mortgage change that we talked about. AB 1879, enhancing the electronic signature capability. AB 2353 Ward, for the withholding of property tax for those meeting strict welfare exemption application procedures, and the subsidiary CLT measure, AB 2897 Connolly. So those 4 bills, in addition to our 2 sponsored bills, will have LTAs coming out to inform all the 58 counties and assessors. That's really it and obviously from a calendar perspective, being that it's going to be the beginning of a new 2-year session, the bill introduction deadlines will be earlier than they were last year. So we will have bill requests to council in late January the 24th, and last day to introduce bills will be February 21st. So things will move a little earlier this year than they would this past year. Other than that, I would say that, you know, seeing some of the things that happen nationally and statewide, we had Prop 1 passed in March for low-income housing and other efforts for veterans housing and things like that, and it was very close and it passed. In November, the voters on Prop 2 supported 5841 to give bond authority for public schools. They, on Prop 36, for enhanced sentencing for crimes in retail crimes, kind of something that people have been concerned about, and increased sentencing went up 68 to 31 in terms of yes to no votes on that. Voters rejected 2 housing affordability supplemental items. One, which would have made it easier for locals to approve bonds for affordable housing. That failed in Prop 5, 44 to 55. So the appetite that was in Prop 1, which was close, went down in November. So that's it from a recap perspective. I just thought I would cover those items since they're of interest to us from a public policy standpoint. And if you have any questions, obviously, legislation that we will be considering or for the board's consideration will be coming up in the probably at the next board meeting. We may have some on the agenda, but none to talk about today. And if you have any questions, I'm answer them now.
Okay, great. Questions, Mr. Vasquez?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Angelo, for your presentation. In discussing the special session, which is coming up, I believe, the first week of December here, you indicated that there are no bills directly related to the board's jurisdiction, but there are certainly some tangible effects, I'm thinking, specifically in terms of the climate programs, which could impact the number of issues we have discussed recently. The one that comes to mind is the PV, the Rancho Palos Verdes situation, which I think is only going to get worse. I don't think it's going to get better. And I'm wondering what you have heard about in terms of any climate initiatives that might be brewing out there.
Well, there's the hearing tomorrow that you're
right.
having on the carbon initiative. I have not heard anything specific other than that is a big issue that you mentioned in the Palos Verdes area. Tragic. But I have not heard of any specific legislative proposals, especially regarding property tax public policy issues, which are highly governed by the Constitution and would need either an ACA or some other form of new type of exemption to go forward something like that. But I haven't heard anything percolating in that realm. Most of what he was highlighting, and when I say he, I mean the governor, was highlighting are things that are under our purview that California has done ahead of what's done, you know, whether it's reproductive rights, things like that, that they will be covering when they convene that special session on the 2nd. But there is no agenda item ahead of it leading up to it that we've seen so far.
Yeah, I would keep my ears to the ground because I keep hearing, at least in talking to some of the leadership, that he's going to come down pretty hard and heavy because he still has a huge gap to backfill on the budget.
Right. And just on the landscape of the Assembly and the Senate, there wasn't, even though nationally things changed quite a bit, California did not. Orange County area had some real close races and some possible turnover there from one party to the other. So that's really the only changes we've seen in California.
Okay, great. Mr. Imran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And speaking of the turnover that we're having, we have a new batch of legislators coming in, both on the federal and state level too. If you mind compiling a list of the new incoming legislators, the areas they represent, both sides of the aisle. And I think we as a board have been working to get some good face time to make sure that they understand what this board is doing too, and I think that'll be helpful in the long term. So I would appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll work with Ms. Stowers on how we can get that information to you, because we usually have breakdown material, not BoE itself, but that we can share, either Mr. Kim or myself about the new members coming in.
Mr. Gaines.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, just to.
You may want to tilt it up just a bit. Because
Yeah, to weigh in on that, there used to be a little booklet that we were able to get in the legislature that had the name of.
The little red book?
The red book, yeah. Is it possible that we could get a few copies for members?
I know that's possible. I just don't know how the budgeting works for that.
Yeah, okay. That'd be really helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, there's a copy being held up from staff here. I think it's called Capital Inquiry, and it is indeed the Red Book. And, okay, other questions for Mr. Angelo? Seeing none, thank you very much for your report, and would you like to close?
The only thing I didn't mention is the Secretary of State certifies by December 13th all the election results. So things are still pending on, too close to call races and things like that, even though they may look out of reach. But that's the hard date for the Secretary of State on those.
Along those lines, do we know how many are still in the
When I looked,
pending category?
When I looked, there were only about 5 or 6 that were in that range, and they were only a couple were super close, where I could see the potential for a recount. But it's very rare.
Mr. Imran, did you have one?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The swearing in of each of these members is going to be the first week of January, and then the first day of session is January, if you know?
The organizational session happens December 2nd. So in years past, they've actually sworn somebody in that got replaced after it was certified because it was that close. So it's possible that they'll swear in a member on December 2nd, and that member won't be able to take office when the legislature reconvenes on January 6th. Again, that happens very rarely, and it has to be in those too close to calls where you're talking hundreds of vote difference.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, members.
For your report. And we will go on now to taking public comment for all of the executive director's reports, items 13 through 20. We don't have any written comments nor any comment cards from the auditorium. So we'll go to the AT&T moderator. Moderator, if you would please let us know if there's anyone holding on the line to make comments on items 13 through 20.
Yes, Madam Chair. And if you do have a comment on items 13 through 20, please press 1 then 0 at this time. There are no lines for comments or questions at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Members, the last item for today is closing remarks, and then we'll recess until tomorrow's session. Any closing comments? And I think we'll also have closing comments tomorrow, so if you want to have some that you'd like to save, that's okay too. Mr. Emron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank everyone for a great day one, a lot of good information. Just want to do a real quick in memoriam, the remains of 2 California service members who were killed during World War II's. Bodies have been positively ID'd, bringing closure to families more than 80 years after their death. This is Private Herbert R. Worley of Bell, California, United States Army, and Sergeant Yvonne Hopp, Air Force, United States Air Force of Livermore, California. Thank goodness for DNA, for dental records, and these heroes can finally come home and have a proper burial. Thank you.
Thank you very much for raising their names with us today. That's such an important issue. No person left behind. Mr. Vasquez.
Yes, in closing, I know we're coming back tomorrow, but I just actually got an email from some of the business community down in my district from, I guess this is travel, leisure survey that's done, some kind of competition that they do. And they shot it over to me because they mentioned that they picked the #1 U.S. city, beach city, and Santa Monica came out on top, beating Maui and some of these other places that I thought were kind of nice, right?
Nice.
Little kudos there, I guess.
Very good, very good. Oh, well, what can we say about Santa Monica? It's a blessed place. Okay, if there are no further comments, we will now recess the meeting at 3:51, and we'll continue tomorrow, Wednesday, November 20th, 2024, at 10 a.m. here at the Maley State Office Complex in Sacramento, California. Thank you.